Today's read aloud is called Fueled for Adventure. It's based off of the Disney Pixar Cars 2 series, and it was adapted by Christine Paymani and Adam B. Murr, illustrated by Carson Van Alsten. Chapter 1. My name is McMissile, Finn McMissile. Some cars call me a spy, but I prefer secret agent. My job is to bring villains to justice. If I do my job right, most cars will never know I exist. My mission began when Special Agent Leland Turbo sent me a message from the middle of the ocean. I've stumbled onto something massive, Turbo whispered urgently. I could barely see him on the video feed. The signal kept breaking up. Need to get my data in. Lives will be lost. He never finished the message. They found me, was the last thing I heard. Turbo needed help. And headquarters needed his data. There was no time to lose. I set out to find him. Within hours, I had hitched a ride on a small crab boat. We were headed out to sea to Turbo's last location. The night was dark. The waves tossed up and down. Suddenly, a bright spotlight shone on us. What are you doing out here? A huge speedboat boomed. I figured we were in the right place. Why else would a security boat be out here? What's it look like? Crabbing. My feisty little crab boat snapped in reply. While the speedboat was distracted, I sneaked onto his hull. Soon we were racing across the water. It wasn't long before I saw a group of massive oil derricks. They were tall structures, pumping oil from the ocean floor. The speedboat pulled up to one. I used my built-in climbing cables to pull myself up the side of the derrick. I shut off my engine and rolled into shadows. A group of ugly little vehicles huddled on the deck below. They were all gremlins and pacers. But why were they here? Who were they working for? Using my cables, I slid into position high above the scene. A secret camera popped out of my headlight. I began snapping photos. One close-up showed a large video camera. There were 3 big letters on its side. WGP. Suddenly, there was a murmur in the crowd below. Someone important had arrived. Out of the way! Out of the way! A car shouted in a German accent. It was Professor Z, a well-known scientist and criminal. I knew he was the car in charge. Just then, I noticed Turbo next to Professor Z. The poor fellow had been crushed into a lump of metal. As I stared in horror, a light flared at the top of the rig. My shadow fell across the deck. Professor Z looked up. It's Finn McMissile, he shouted. The gremlins and pacers swarmed toward me. Quickly, I cut myself loose from my cables. I swung down and landed on the deck. Then I sped up a nearby ramp. The bad guys were close on my fender, so I sprayed oil behind me. Then sent a few of them sliding off the side of the derrick. When I reached the top of the ramp, there was nowhere to go. So I leaped off the side and plunged straight into the deep water below. Suddenly, a crew of heavily armed boats began firing missiles at me. There were explosions all around. For a moment, I didn't think I'd be able to escape. As a last resort, I dived deep underwater and switched to the submarine mode. The missile firing stopped. Good, I thought. Professor Z and his crew thought I was dead. There is no better cover for a secret agent. I'm going to read Chapter 2, because they are short chapters. While I was on the oil derrick, key events were unfolding in a little American town called Radiator Springs. These events would change the course of my entire mission. And it all began with a rusty old tow truck named Mater. He was waiting for his best friend Lightning McQueen to return home. The famous American race car had just won the Hudson Hornet Memorial Piston Cup. Oh boy, Mater said. He was so excited. He had made a welcome home sign for Lightning out of a pile of tires, an old battery, and some lights. It was alarming what that chap could create out of simple junk. Mater waited and waited for Lightning to arrive. In fact, he waited so long that he fell asleep. When Lightning finally rolled into town, Mater was snoring. Lightning and his Radiator Springs friends gathered around Mater. Finally, someone blew his horn. The The tow truck jumped up in surprise. He was so startled that he shot backwards, swerved all the way through the town, and fell over a cliff. Are any of these characters sounding familiar? Everyone raced to see if Mater was all right, but he came back up over the dusty cliff, smiling. "Wow, you just got yourself a nasty dent there, Mater," said Lightning. Oddly, Mater didn't seem to mind. To him, a dent was a sign of friendship. Later that evening, Lightning went out for a quiet dinner with his girlfriend Sally, but the entire town joined them to celebrate Lightning's victory. Mater was there too. Just then, Sir Miles Axelrod came on the restaurant's TV screen. He was being interviewed on a talk show. Everyone in the restaurant listened closely. Axelrod had made a fortune in the oil industry, but now he was changing his business. He had created a clean, alternative fuel called Aloud. He wanted everyone to use it. The television reporter explained Axelrod's plan to show the world what his new super fuel can do. He created a racing competition like no other, inviting the greatest champions from around the globe to battle in the first ever World Grand Prix. There would be 3 races in 3 different countries, Japan, Italy, and England. All the race cars would use all in all. Lightning McQueen was the only champion who was not racing. Lightning stared at the TV. He had really wanted some time off to be with Sally and all his friends, but then the Italian racer Francesco Bernoulli appeared on the TV screen. Lightning McQueen would not have a chance against Francesco, he boasted. Mater was so angry he ran straight into the telephone and called into the show. "That Italian fella on there can't talk that way about Lightning McQueen," Mater declared. "Lightning could drive circles around you." Francesco smiled. "Driving in circles is all he can do, no?" Then he turned to the interviewer. "Can we move on? Francesco needs a caller who can provide a little more intellectual stimulation, like a dump truck." That did it. In moments, Lightning was on the phone too. "I don't appreciate my best friend being insulted," he declared. The argument grew from there. Finally, Lightning decided to accept Francesco's challenge to teach Francesco a lesson. He would race in the World Grand Prix after all, and he would take his friends, including Mater, Sarge, Fillmore, Luigi, and Guido. Shortly after that, my path would cross Lightning and Mater's in a most unusual way.